It's old art time. Right then, so before this guy had a name, he was just a generic Imperial commander. And then, for his photo or artwork, he was then christened Marneus Calgar, Lord Macragge. And he's been with us ever since, almost 40 years. Now, even from the get-go, you can see that Marneus Calgar has his famous pair of power fists. I remember reading he got them from a defeated Chaos champion. When I was a lad, I thought this was odd. I assumed any Chaos weapons would be destroyed as they were corrupt or something. Did I miss something in the story? My gut tells me here that Mr. Calgar is just having a rest before he sets off to the shops. We can see his shopping list in his hand. There's also another copy of the list on his notepad, which is attached to that dinosaur's head. What items do you think he needs to buy? Now, if you were to take a second to have a look at Mr. Calgar's wall, you will note he has a framed picture of the Emperor on there. An old picture, but it checks out. I'm absolutely convinced this is inspired by the M office briefing scenes in James Bond, where M always had a picture of the Queen on the wall. I guess in the next James Bond movie, M will have to have a picture of the King. That will be interesting. So those dinosaur things in the picture, I've been informed that they are in fact supposed to be Tyranids. Although they might not look like Tyranids to you or me, I would assume it's because these are an early design of said beasts. The most amusing thing about this old Tyranid design to me is the eye stalk on the back of their heads. Also, it was only on one side, I believe, which is an odd design choice. Very alien and very apt. I'll tell you what, those old Tyranids look really weird, don't they? Especially with that eye on a stalk coming out of their neck. Literally eyes in the back of their head. A bit like my old teacher at high school. Hello, Mrs. Newbury, if you're watching. Now, regardless of however you fancy describing this picture, it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. I love this atmosphere. It's perfect Rogue Trader era 40k. Now, what we're seeing here is a robot raising its hand in a smacking style. Is he smacking the orc's bum? Has the orc been naughty? When I was a lad, we had our bums smacked all the time, but I think it's frowned upon these days. I even had the stick or cane once. That's how old I am. Now, although I don't like to blow my own trumpet, I think only Prince was able to do that due to having a rib removed, I like to consider myself well informed as to the Rogue Trader era miniatures and designs. But this robot, I do not recognise. I don't think there was a miniature related to this piece unless it was released in that weird proto-40k era and wasn't carried forward into the mainline releases. If any of you guys know, then I would love to know where it came from. There are some interesting details on the body of this robot, notably a rose and vine motif on the top there. I can't say I've seen this on a Marine or Mechanicum faction before, but I think it's really rather interesting, and it's an idea I like so much I might have to steal. I do, however, get Guns N' Roses vibes from it. Maybe the artist had an old album cover on his desk. Did any of the Guns N' Roses albums have rose and vines on the cover art? I know there's a Guns N' Roses expert watching. It might even be Slash. Now have a little look at the robot's left leg. On the knee pad, there appears to be a poster. It's either a wanted poster with a typo or it says hated. Either option is interesting. Wanted posters being applied to robots is a fun idea, as is a hated enemy poster. Maybe it indicates WYSIWYG preferred enemy. Hated enemy with a photo of an orc. Lovely. Can you see the orc at the bottom of the picture? Well, the way his jaw is hanging wide open like that reminds me of those UFO movie scenes when people's mouths open really far. Was there any reason for that? Why is he doing this anyway? Is he shouting or screaming something? Ah, this is a nice one. So what you guys are looking at here are some Zoats, pretty rare in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. There's not many miniatures of them. Also, I've just noticed the one at the front reminds me of a guinea pig with a mask on, and I don't know why. So I'm not really sure how I would explain a Zoat. I suppose you could say they're weird alien centaur creatures with biomechanical attachments and weapons. Not a million miles away from yet another Giga-inspired creature. How would you guys describe a Zoat? When I was a lad back in the 80s, one of the best decades I'll have you know, these Zoats were sort of allied with the Tyranids. I don't remember them being actual Tyranids, but I do think they used to hang about with them. I've a feeling they might have been some sort of emissary for the Tyranid race, but also again I might be misremembering, so don't quote me on that. Zoats also always seem to be wearing these weird looking face masks. I've no idea what the purpose behind them is, but if I had to guess it would be A, something to help them breathe as they can't breathe the same air we do, or B, some kind of combat drug applied through the use of a mask. I doubt it's C and they're worried about catching something. Your guess is as good as mine on that one. Now I need a Tyranid expert on hand. Do the weapons the Zoats carry look exactly the same as flesh borers? Are they actually using flesh borers? They look exactly the same to me. I think it's that sort of organic looking curly stock part. So as of this moment in time, Zoats are once again unavailable. They did come back briefly for Blackstone Fortress with a lovely brand new miniature, but that's also now been discontinued again, I think. Will we ever see them again? And if so, what form would they take? Now I think a Zoat kill team would be really cool. You would get maybe like 3 of them in a box because they're quite big. Also, my autocorrect keeps changing the word Zoat to goat, which, although amusing, is bloody annoying. Although a kill team of goats would be something to see. Is that basically beastmen? Or beastmen, I should say, not beastmen. Hang on a minute, someone's been going through my Facebook. Isn't this a photo of an old girlfriend of mine? Have those guys in Vietnam been hacking my Facebook account again? So this young lady doesn't look quite right, does she? She has a sort of diseased, ill look to her. Is she a mutant, or is she suffering the effects of some sort of radioactive fallout? Maybe she did a deal with a certain chaos god. Who knows? Whatever she's got, I don't want it myself. Now I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but this young lady's hair seems to be arranged in a manner that reminds me of a diadema sea urchin, a big black spiky one. Unless it's some sort of headpiece. I do think it's the hair though. Also slap bang in the centre of it, in the parting if you will, is that little A logo again. Is that a tattoo on her scalp, or is it just drawn on? Who knows? On the lady's right here is some sort of earpiece. What is this? Is it a bionic hearing enhancer perhaps? Or is it just the 41st millennium's version of Beats by Dre? I've never met anyone with a pair of those. Are they as good as they make out? Now there's something really strange going on with the lady's left shoulder. There appears to be a chicken toe growing out of either her back or her shoulder. I'm assuming this is the taint of chaos or some sort of mutation. If you have a better explanation, I'm all ears. And it reminds me of the fingers in The Witches. The Witches' fingers, I mean. Talking of The Witches, we went to see it performed at the theatre when I was a lad. We went with the school. I remember it well as my old friend Gary got caught breaking into the condom machine and had a rather large telling off, and I had forgotten all about that until now. Okay, so what we're looking at here are some little attachments for your fingers, known as Digi weapons. They are not thimbles. Nowadays they're portrayed more like rings, but the thimble idea does look amusing, if a little awkward, to wear. Now back in the olden days of the 80s, back in the Rogue Trader era, Digi weapons were known as Jokero Digi weapons, I believe. They were all made by Jokeros. If you're not sure what a Jokero is, it's a sort of big orange alien chimpanzee thing with a weird ability to make highly advanced technological things. Or just tech, I guess. I don't know if they were meant to be intelligent themselves or if it was just some weird instinct. I think they're still around today. My fondest memory of the Digi weapon is from the old board game Space Crusade. That game was my gateway into the hobby and it was marvellous. I think one of the Space Marine captains had access to Digi weapons, as I can remember a little equipment card with it on, and I might have to dig that out. As you can see here, the Digi weapons used to take the form of thimble-shaped finger attachments, weapons worn on the fingertips. Again, like I said before, it's changed now to the more common ring style, although I do think the thimble style does still exist. Imagine typing with the thimble ones attached to your fingers. You could accidentally shoot your keyboard to bits. Also, I would strongly recommend not picking your nose when wearing one of these things. It would be rather dangerous indeed. Interestingly, the person in our picture is wearing 5 Digi weapons, 1 on each finger, including his thumb. That's very greedy in my opinion. I thought 1 would be enough. I wonder if anything like Digi weapons exists in real life. Has anyone ever made a finger or ring mounted weapon? The closest thing I can think of is a catapult, but they require 2 hands and they're not attached to your hand either, so they're nothing like them really. Remember that scene featuring the bounty hunters in The Empire Strikes Back? Vader tells Boba Fett that he's not allowed to disintegrate the Millennium Falcon crew.
No disintegrations.
Well, I guess this is what it would look like if you got hit by one of these weapons and you get disintegrated. Either that or you're turned into a big hairy ball, and nobody wants to be a big hairy ball. The Imperial Guardsman firing his weapon here has a typical Imperial Guardsman helmet on, as is his right and privilege. However, the rear of the helmet has what I like to call a mullet piece, a sort of flared section that I would assume covers the neck. I've seen these on the helmets of the Colonial Marines in Aliens, so I'm gonna guess that's what the inspiration was. I would also assume they have a proper name, but I couldn't tell you what it was, but I bet one of you guys know. The left hand big hairy ball has a figure inside it. One would assume this is an unfortunate victim being vaporized, but I suppose it is also possible these are teleport flashes and people are appearing, and that's why the guy is firing at them. What do you guys reckon? Vaporizing or teleporting? Now, a lot of the artwork during the Rogue Trader era features really cool looking muzzle flashes around its weapons. This one is a little different. Not so much as a muzzle flash as a sort of wibbly wobbly jelly effect. Maybe it's a rare and esoteric weapon. Also, my notes says it has a wagon effect, and I've no idea what I meant by that. It's probably a typo. The only wagon that comes to mind with me is wagon wheels. Remember when they were huge? They're tiny now. Now, these two things also look a bit like the Oldhammer jungle trees or cacti. Remember those things? Possibly the most famous piece of Warhammer 40,000 flora there ever was. Just green balls with the red spikes coming out. Did they even have a proper name? That does remind me though, I do want to build some of those jungle trees in the Oldhammer style. Would you guys like to see that video? If so, let me know in the comments below. Aha! We haven't had one of these for a little while now. We have some flora, and in this case it's a mushroom. Don't tell Mario we're doing this, as he might come and eat it. Hang on, are all the Mario games some sort of mushroom-induced hallucination? So I believe this is the second mushroom we've taken a look at in our art videos. To be honest, I think this probably looks a lot like the first one we saw. I might even have messed up and repeated the image. Let me know if you can remember. Now here's a little story for you. As a youngster, I absolutely hated mushrooms. I refused to eat them, as I felt the taste and the texture was hideous. Nowadays, I really like them, especially when they're sliced really thin and cooked with some steak or something. Yummy! How do you like your mushrooms? Let us all know in the comments below. This particular mushroom probably isn't of the edible variety. I don't think I would recommend eating this one. It looks like it might give you a few side effects, death probably being one of them. There's not a huge amount to say about mushrooms really, but I do have one little story. Now, when we were at school back in the 1990s, we had to make our own t-shirts. Well, not make the t-shirt, do the design on a blank t-shirt. I made one with a mushroom character on, probably inspired by the mushroom people in Super Mario Bros. Because it was very popular at the time. But I got told off because the teachers thought it was a magic mushroom. It was fun though. Speaking of fun, if you are enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Simon. Also remember, Mrs. SnakeWorks has said that when we hit 10,000 subscribers, we're allowed to order a Warhound Titan. So please smash that subscribe button and we can hit that target ASAP. Also, if you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining our Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Anyway, it's enough e-begging, let's continue on. Here we have a gentleman who doesn't look very happy. He looks quite annoyed. I would assume it's because he's realised he's not yet subscribed to the channel. Silly Billy. All he has to do is click the button. So I'm not sure who this chap is actually supposed to be, but my gut tells me it's a renegade guardsman. The clothing he has on reminds me of a guardsman's uniform, especially the legs and one of the shoulder pads. The other shoulder pad is like a small upside down Mark VI Space Marine shoulder pad. Why is it on upside down? His clothing is very tattered and torn, which adds credence to my view this is a renegade guardsman, unless he's some sort of lone survivor from a battle, which is quite possible now I think about it. Usually, when we look at this old Rogue Trader era artwork, the weapons look a little odd. Most of the time, they are unrecognisable. This time, things are a little different. I'm pretty sure this weapon is a bolter. Maybe it belonged to the same Marine that used to own the upside down shoulder pad, perhaps. For some bizarre reason, this man's hair is standing on end. It looks less like a hairstyle and more like it's standing upright in fright, like those old Ghostbusters toys I had as a kid. You squeezed their arms and their hair popped up, I think. Or was it their legs? When I was a boy, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so sadly I didn't have many of those toys. I did, however, always want one of the Ghostbusters firehouses. I thus decided to make my own. I think I used an old shoebox and stuck some card in to act as floors, and of course, a fire pole. I also made the little Ghostbusters sign hanging over the front door. I was fascinated with Ghostbusters apparently. Our next picture is displaying a collection of gangs. Well, 2 gangs to be precise. Each gang appears to have 3 members, although I feel this is more an indicator of a general gang type, rather than the entirety of the gangs. So first up of the 2, on the left, are what are apparently known as hoverbus gangmen. These guys appear to actually be engineers, or motor technicians, people who are employed to fix the hoverbuses. I've never referred to working at a job as being as part of a gang, but maybe that's how things work in the 41st millennium. Now have a look at the second gang member there. He's wearing a t-shirt on with that logo on again. I swear, this logo pops up more than the Imperial Aquila in Rogue Trader. I think I've said it before, but rumour has it this was an old band logo. A band of the punk variety, I think. I suppose I should really just look it up. The second gang we have here are the Hell's Reach punks. Hell's Reach being the name of the planet they live on, or was it the city? Anyway, these guys have absolutely massive hairdos. Like those things grannies used to sit in at the salon. Is that still a thing? They had these big plastic bowls on their heads. Have a look at the leftmost punk. Check out his t-shirt. It says sniffing glue on it. Older viewers might remember that glue sniffing was a thing back in the 70s and 80s at school, and people were warned against it. It could be fatal. It might actually still be a thing today, but I'm not at school anymore. Do they still talk about it? Anyway, I'm not sure what sort of glue people were sniffing anyway. I would hazard a guess there was a solvent-based adhesive somewhere that made you lightheaded. But don't sniff glue, folks. I mean, would you really want to look like one of these guys? Anyway, so today's big question is, if you had to pick one of these gangs to join, would you pick the Hoverbus Gangmen or the Hell's Reach Punks? Which would you join, and why? Let us all know in the comments below. Bloody lovely artwork there. If you want to see some more Oldhammer themed artwork, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.